What is up, my peepholes? This is your guy, Cly, and welcome back to Budget Buys. Now today, what I'm going to be taking a look at is the Crenova XPE498 Projector. And I got to admit, I'm pretty excited about this review because I've been obsessed with projectors for years. And I may or may not have a stockpile of mini projectors that I found while out thrifting, but this is the first time I've gotten my hands on an HD projector. Even better, this thing comes in at a low enough cost that I would have bought it myself had I known it existed before the manufacturer reached out to me. In fact, it comes in at just under $100 despite having all of the bells and whistles I'm about to show you. But to do that, I need to get this out of the box. Let's just give it a little bit of a shimmy. Gotta love these vacuum sealed boxes, you know? It's still going. Any second now. Come on. Nope, just about there. Come on. And, we're free! Now in this box, we have all of the cables and accessories. I'll just set that off to the side and get into the projector itself. There we go, and get this box out of the way. And bring out the little projector itself. And yes, I do mean little because this thing is, what, maybe a foot wide at the most? And yet it packs in a whole lot of goodies, with probably the most impressive being the 3000 lumen light source in the form of an LED with a 50,000 hour rated lifespan. And the LED doesn't just bring a long lifespan, it also brings a low operating temperature. And because of that, the fans on this projector are a whole heck of a lot quieter than any of the bulb-based projectors I've used in the past. Because yes, I do have an old Wonderwall projector that I bought back in college that uses a halogen slide projector bulb, and A, that thing's not as bright as this, B, the filament is prone to burning out in way less than 50,000 hours, and C, holy crap, those fans are loud and they stay on even after turning off the projector to make sure things cool down uniformly. In fact, I'll let you hear what the fans on this projector sound like later on. But before that, let's take a closer look at this projector, because on this side over here, we have several inputs, as well as one output. What we have is HDMI in, USB in so that it can read video files off of a flash drive, AV in, which uses standard composite video and audio, and headphone out, because while this does have its own speaker here, it's not the largest, and even in the manual it does suggest using an external set of headphones or a sound system of sorts. And as for the back, what we have, if I flip it over, is a VGA port, an SD card reader, and an IR receiver, because of course this uses a remote control and you're not just dependent on the on-top controls. Over here, what we have is the lens cap, which is really a good thing to have to keep you from getting all kinds of smudges on this really large and lovely lens. And on top, we have a focusing wheel. This allows you to get the best picture possible when you're within the optimal projection range, which is between 1.12 meters and 6 meters according to the manual, and after a bit of testing, I'm going to say that's about right. Of course, you can attempt to go beyond that range, either closer or further away. You're not going to be losing your picture significantly until you reach a very far distance. That range is more based on the travel the lens has within the projector to give you a well-focused image. Of course, you can compensate for that by using external optics, but that's an additional sunk cost, so we're just going to ignore that for the time being. But if you stick within the 1.12 and 6 meter range, you're going to end up with a projected screen between 30 or so inches and 200 inches. And I'm pleased to say you don't need total darkness to pull this off, though admittedly, if you're going up to the 200 inch range, you are going to want things pretty dang dim. Of course, a proper projection screen as opposed to your wall will enable things to be a bit brighter in the room while still getting a nice quality image. Now let's take a look at the accessories that came along with this little guy. For in this box, what you receive are the power cable, an HDMI cable, which is actually kind of interesting because not only is it pretty long, they went with a flat ribbon cable style design, and I've never actually come across one of those before. That's just kind of neat to me. Next up, we have the manual. Yeah, the controller. Come on. The AV adapter, which is always nice. That's not always included with devices like this. And last but not least, a screw. Specifically a screw that's meant to go in the bottom here so that you can angle your projection accordingly. And I should point out that on the back here, we do have a little slider that's used to change the position of the screen inside the projector so you can compensate from having to angle things. That's just a nice little attention to detail there. Now, before I move on to the projection test, I do want to point out the fact that the native resolution on this projector is not actually 1080p, though fortunately it is a 16:9 aspect ratio. What it actually is 800 by 400, though admittedly, unless you're at 200 inches or so on your projection, you're not really going to notice the lack of pixel density. In fact, a technically lower res screen is pretty common in projectors like this, even when you're talking the much more expensive ones. I know all the projectors that I'm currently sitting on, which use a 4:3 ratio screen by the way, are about 320 by 240 pixels if you're lucky. Fortunately, this is identified as a 1080p screen by the devices that you plug into it, so you're still going to be getting your optimal output. Now, the last thing I'm going to do before I get to the projection test is let you hear how loud the fans are. So, if I do that, give it a second, and there we go. As you can see, it's actually not that loud. Yes, it's a bit noticeable, but it's not much louder than my PC's fans, and that's a great thing. Even better, if I double tap the power button to put it into standby mode, the fan turns off immediately. The halogen one that I was talking about earlier, it would keep running the fan for safety's sake for about 5 more minutes, so that's good. Anyway, let's move on to the projection test proper. Alright, so for this test, I've got the projector set up about 2 meters away from a whiteboard I found while dumpster diving a few years back, hence the dents you might be seeing on the right-hand side. And I've got pretty much every light in the room on aside from my recording lights. But of course with my camera, unless the light is blinding, it's going to look a little bit moody. Despite all that, everything looks really crisp on the screen, especially in person, and heck, despite my camera fighting against me, even my stock footage pops. Things look even better when I move over to one of my YouTube videos thanks to the fact that I record on top of a very bright green mat. Now, for this next test, I decided to wait until it was pitch black outside so that I could show you what things look like in the dark. I even moved the projector back another foot or two so that I could take up all of the horizontal real estate of the whiteboard. Now, as for what I'm doing with this projector, I have a very specific project in mind, and I'll go ahead and leave you a hint right now. Oh, and to prove to you that I'm actually using the projector and not a large screen TV for this shot, I went ahead and coaxed my cat right in front of it. And that is the Crenova XPE498 Projector, a little sub $100 digital projector that in my opinion does a bang-up job for the price. I'm going to go ahead and leave the Amazon link down in the description below if you want to check it out. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get back to testing out microphones because for some strange reason I keep buying more. At this point, I expect my obituary to say, "Found buried under a pile of microphones." But on that note, until next time, this is your guy Cly, signing off.